to our broadcast, and I'll look for everybody in the audience and just move them over if they're a committee member. Hey, folks, this is Planning Director Port. I'm just making sure all of our committee members are promoted to panelists, so hang on just a moment as we get started. But Jane, I'll defer to you. I'm just going to keep an eye on the attendees list and make sure that people are moved over. So.
Okay, thank you. All right, who do we have here? Ooh, we have all our volunteers. Hey, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi.
Hey, Barry. Oh, you might be on mute. We can't hear you, Barry. Yeah. I'm thinking you must be talking to us. Can you wave your hand if you can hear me? Yes, okay. We still cannot hear you. I'll just give us a couple more minutes before we kick
We
off.
also put on the website, in case somebody's looking for it or needs it, we put a phone number on the website with the Zoom link as well. So you can also call in if you're having some sort of audio technical issue.
Andy, can you move all right, and Rick over as well? All right. Ooh, I apologize. No.
Or like I've been upgraded. I've been promoted to a panelist.
I hate Rick.
Thanks.
Barry, can you try one more time? We're gonna get started anyway, but I definitely want to make sure you're able. No. How about try the phone number Andy posted?
That's the number, webinar ID, if you need to call in.
All right. I think we're all members or representatives from West Newbury here. So I won't bother right now anyway with public comments. I trust everyone's gotten the agenda and the meeting notes from last month. Barb, thank you so much for doing those. Does anyone have any comments, issues with them before we get them posted? See or hear anybody. So all right, we'll have Diane post those. Thank you.
Hey, Jane, I was just noticing on the website, our posted minutes are only go back to June. So I'm not sure what's going on there. I'll ask.
Okay, because I know you've been asking to get them.
Yeah.
Oh, Diane's been saying they've been posted too.
Yeah, me too,
Huh.
but
All right, thank you.
I was just looking to see if September had been, because I couldn't remember, and
Yeah.
Sarah, one thing you may want to take a look at, it might be a question for Diane, but the website's a little funky, and I think one of the things might be that Diane might have to do like a two-step thing in order to have it post or be seen in two different places the way you navigate. So I don't know, it may be that she posted something, but it isn't for some reason navigated that way. It's just a weird thing about the website. So it might be that just because
that's a good point. I'll look on the
usually so
calendar.
thorough that it might be that.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, I'll chase it down.
Thank you. So I wanted to talk briefly about community membership and roles, and this was spurred by, I'm sure everyone saw the email from John Eric a few weeks ago, feeling like he had to step off of the committee. It was really jarring for me to get that. And so I followed up with him immediately to see, you know, what was going on. And yeah, I'll let anyone who wants to contact him. But he still is involved. We've talked at length, and he's decided he wants to be a resource to the committee, as well as serve on, and we'll get into it a little bit later, the work that we're doing on the resiliency actions and priorities. He's serving on that subcommittee. So he won't be attending these monthly meetings for now anyway. He's more than welcome to at any point, of course. If he's still a resource, he's still very, very committed to these issues as much as anyone here. And yeah, he's been great in this, you know, it's been great to have him in that subcommittee work. But I just wanted to update folks and, you know, I think it would be good to have someone from DPS at these meetings and, so I've been going back and forth a little bit with the mayor's office. I haven't talked to anyone since Andrew left, but we'll figure something out. But I just wanted to, you know, address that because I'm sure some of us were wondering what was going on. Of course, John Eric is incredibly committed. I'm happy that he's still able to work with us. Does anyone have anything else to say on that?
Could I speak to that briefly? This is Andy.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, just, you know, as planning director generically, I think it's very important that the city engineer, obviously folks from public services in general in the administration, but side of things, but also particularly the city engineering position, I think is important. So because there's such a strong point of continuity with all the different things going on in that department, especially capital projects and the way we do things for resiliency and sustainability, in my view, it's very important to maintain that, you know, his ability to participate and, you know, maintain a connection with that department, with that division and everything that's going on there. So, and I think he's been a particularly unique addition for us too, because, you know, I haven't often found we have sort of a very, you know, as a civil engineer who's focused on the sort of resiliency minded things as opposed to just sort of the textbook old fashioned way of doing things. So, I mean, I think in twofold, I think it's really good for us to have John Eric be able to participate to the extent he's able.
Yeah, absolutely. Beyond that, Sarah and I were talking recently, and we all appreciate Sarah's incredible note taking, but just trying to figure, you know, if there's anyone else that would like to take over that role. I have a feeling, Sarah, you can speak for yourself, but I think you would be open to that. Maybe even every other month. So you don't have to raise your hand now, but we are looking for someone to take over that. Possible.
And I just say, as a committee chair on council who has to do her own minutes, I really feel for you, Sarah. I know how hard it is. You often have to rewatch these meetings after you've already lived them once. So I greatly appreciate what you're doing. Having said that, I have to leave early every meeting, so I'm probably not the best person for that. But I appreciate you, Sarah. I see you and I see all
Thank
you're
you,
doing.
Connie.
I think we all do. All right, well, I'm gonna be waiting for someone to raise their hand at some point. Actually, Andy, do you mind taking down because the agenda just so that stop sharing so that we can all see each other a little bit more? Unless anyone do people prefer the agenda up? Does it matter?
I don't mind it. Doesn't bother me.
Okay, so we'll just leave it up.
Jane, what you can
Um,
do is drag your screen over so you can see,
Yeah, you know,
you can shrink the agenda.
Oh, you know what? I never did that. Never mind. It's I think I have. It's been a while since I worked on it remotely. Okay, committee updates. We've been hard at work on the Green Expo. Yesterday we had a site visit to both the senior center and then a senior center Bresnahan, sort of thinking of a combo of that location and also the Knopf. And Sarah or Molly, do you have anything you want to report to the group on that or need any input from the group on the expo generally?
Well, I guess we're now meeting regularly with the event planners. That's worth noting. And they're getting more and more up to speed. We've got a couple more volunteers that have raised their hand to take over kind of major chunks of the expo. Bill Clary is going to help pull together the plan for the EV showcase, electric vehicle showcase, and Ben Iacona is interfacing for us with ACES, and they will be managing the nonprofits showcase at the expo. We're definitely looking for more volunteers, and we've got we've started a list of sort of the key areas where we need help. So if anybody's interested in that, we can share it.
I would say too, Jane had a good idea yesterday. Instead of doing, nonprofit and commercial vendors, maybe having them by subject areas. So, you could have food related, and that can include composting. You could have energy related, you could have vehicle related, you could have transportation, so that rather than having like one room with all the nonprofits, have them done by subject, which I think might be more interesting for folks. So we talked about sort of chunking it out that way. The other thing is the senior center and Braz, I think, are much more appealing, aesthetically and visually. And there will also be a tent in between the two buildings. It's close, it's more attached to the senior center. So there's a lot of space outdoors that we can use, but that's all weather dependent. And if we can get a speaker, Barry, we wouldn't have that availability at those two places necessarily. What's that mean, Barry? You got them? You do?
Yay.
Really?
Yay, that's awesome, Barry.
That is
Doug?
huge.
Doug Talemi. And is this definite? Has he?
I
Yeah.
wish we could hear you, Barry.
Hmm.
But 2 thumbs up to you too.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good. So we could do something even more creative and maybe check on the firehouse for a different night. If we did, oh, and that was the other thing we talked about, Saturday versus Sunday for the event. There's less going on Sundays for folks, afternoons, of course. Less going on for folks on Sundays. And then maybe we do the speaker on Sunday night. Do you think that would be a problem, Barry, for Doug? Doesn't know. Okay. All right. Well, or maybe he does Saturday night, and then that leads into that's another
Sunday,
great
yeah.
opportunity to get people to come to the Green Expo on Sunday. So
That's what I was
those are all
thinking. Yeah.
some details that we have to figure out.
Barry, we'll call you or give one of us a call so we can get this scoop, but that's awesome. This is Doug. I always pronounce his last name, I think, on Telemy. He's
Yes.
one of the indigenous plants, native plants. I want to call him a guru. He really started the movement. It's what got a lot of people in this country talking about how important native plants and native gardens are.
He's the expert.
He is the expert. He's written several books. It's super exciting that we'll have him here. I think it'll draw a lot of people. And Julia, Julia, you're working on a project, right? That's inspired by his work.
We're gonna apply for a CPC grant if we can get it in on time. But I think we will, for a little pilot project of what his theory is about sort of low maintenance, native plant, pollinator, habitat kind of species. We're going to do a pilot project at the entrance to the senior center. And we've got a little design done, and we just need to apply for the CPC funding. And yeah, so hopefully he'll be.
When do you think that will potentially be installed?
Well, if we get the funding from CPC, I don't know when they issue their awards, but
Normally late summer, unfortunately.
we would get the
Oh.
award late summer. So then we probably would install the project. I mean, maybe we would do some work in the fall and then get everything planted in
After the
spring.
event. I was just thinking that'd be a nice
Yeah.
case if we
Well,
were
we
there.
could at least show our,
Yeah, the plans.
sketch and plans for it. And I'm also putting together a public information piece about not the pilot project per se, but about what we want people to do throughout the city that's consistent with Doug Tellemy's, homegrown national park concept, which is to like try to remove lawn wherever you can, whether it's in front of a business in the industrial park, or someone who has a giant backyard and just doesn't know what to do with all the lawn, and so they just keep mowing it. But to create these little native, low maintenance gardens that it's a win-win-win for everybody, for climate, for habitat, for the homeowner in terms of costs and maintenance and stuff like that. So we're putting
That's
together
great.
a little public
Julia,
information for sure. Yeah.
Julia, have you spoken with anybody with the organization that's known as WN2? It's West Newbury Wild and Native.
Well, we haven't spoken with them, but I've heard of them. Is that what they're working on for you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there are either 2 or 3 different demonstration gardens that have been worked on now for probably close to 2 years.
Yep.
Um,
At the high school.
yeah, I think there's also some, I was thinking there's one up at Pipestave Hill.
Right.
Oh,
And then
okay.
there's another one out, interestingly, it's, I don't think it's on City of Newburyport property. I think it's on Maple Crest Farms property, but it's adjacent to the Molten Street Reservoir, which
Yeah.
is
Okay.
alternately known as the Indian Hill or the Cherry Hill, whoever you happen to talk to, they're going to call it something different. But the
Okay.
reservoir that's bounded on 2 sides by Molten Street in West Newbury.
Okay.
So that's a pretty active group.
Yes, very.
So we
it-
should talk to them. So do you know who runs it, or who
Yeah, I do. I mean, I have not been attending because I've had conflicts for about the last 6 months, but so currently Carol Decker is chair, but Nancy Powell, who is a wildlife
Yeah.
biologist at the
Yeah.
refuge,
I know Nancy. Yeah.
it has, she was actually sort of sort of one of the primary people starting up, maybe the primary person behind it getting started. So it might be worth
Yeah. It
I-
sounds exactly like what we're trying to do in Newburyport.
yeah.
So we
Yeah.
should talk to them.
And you have more people resources, so you'll you'll do well. But
Well, right now we have like 2 people resources.
oh, okay. Seriously, I mean, it would be good to talk with
Okay.
them.
Well, they would
And
be good to come to the talk
Yeah.
with Doug.
Absolutely.
I'm sure
Oh,
they
yeah,
would.
I'm sure. In fact, my guess is that Nancy, at least, I think Nancy, knows Doug. I don't know how well, but
Yep.
I know that she's referenced him as somebody she has contacted before. And I don't know what level of dialogue she's had, but
I'll reach out to Nancy because I know her
yeah.
from the refuge stuff. So yeah.
yeah.
Right.
Thank
Oh,
you.
I just want
Yeah.
to say thank you to Barry. Barry, thanks for doing that. Appreciate it. And Barry has a long standing relationship back to college, maybe? Is that right? Yes. Okay. So
Yeah,
thank you
great.
very much for that
Yeah,
help.
that's huge.
Can I ask a quick question, Julia? Like, what ballpark of funding would you need for this?
That's one thing we're working on right now. We have a landscaper, woman named Molly Janicki,
Yep.
who is helping us. I don't know if you know her maybe, but
I do, yeah.
she's helping us put together like a budget right now for it. We got Kim Turner did a quick sort of schematic design. Molly's filling in the pieces with species and stuff like that and getting a budget. Mike Hennessy's helped us a little bit as well, but we're still putting together the budget. So I honestly, I couldn't even begin to tell you because it's not my area of expertise.
Yeah,
but we should
I'm
have that soon.
asking largely because I mean, if it's not a tremendous amount of money,
Yeah.
Jane, wearing your other hat, is it something that we could ask as an off-cycle CPC grant?
It might be hard to, those are usually what we call emergency applications, and that might be a hard sell because it's not quite an emergency.
We get all kinds of emergencies at council that aren't really emergencies.
But we can talk about it, Julia. We can
Okay.
talk.
It just would be really nice to have it in place. I agree, it's
I
not an
know.
emergency to
Well,
have
we
it in
have
place,
moved
but it would be.
We've moved the cycle up a bit so you make it easier actually in the council for budgeting, budget season. And so maybe that funding is coming a little bit earlier now. I'm not sure. Do you remember?
Not a
Connie?
tremendous amount of money too,
Mhm.
Julia. We could consider other sources, but I
Yeah.
mean, let's
thank
get a
you. I don't
number
think it
first
will
and then we
be.
can figure it out.
Yeah, and I'm meeting with some folks tomorrow about it, about the budget and things like that, a number of other things. So hopefully we'll get some numbers soon. That would be great.
All right. Keep me informed if there's a way that, yeah, like I said, it'd be great to get this done.
Yeah, thank you. Will do.
So the only other thing on the expo that I wanted to mention is that ACES is hosting a event at the high school on December 17th from 1:30 to 3. And we should consider whether we want to have a table there for the Resiliency Committee to just highlight the Green Expo and potentially look for student volunteers. And if anybody else on the committee wants to help man a table to talk about the Resiliency Committee, that would be awesome.
Sorry, when was that, Sarah?
It's December 17th from 1:30 to 3.
No, I have a commitment. Sorry.
All right, we'll follow up with the group too. I know we have some, Ben gave me some additional information on that yesterday, Sarah.
What are they doing? I missed that. The ACES, what are they
Yeah.
doing?
They're hosting a high school environmental day thing in the cafeteria with different nonprofit groups coming to have tables to talk about what they do. And so it's an opportunity for the Resiliency Committee to have a table and talk
Gotcha.
about the Green Expo and look for volunteers from students. We're looking to get students engaged in the Green Expo.
And just the Resiliency Committee's work generally too.
Sure.
It's a fun event. I love watching all those kids, almost adults.
Right.
I would agree, and it's really inspiring. That's why I would like to be a part of it, but I do have a
I
commitment
guess
that day.
Yeah, I will be there too, so I can help man the table.
Are you going to be there for sustainability or?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, okay. So maybe we could group the tables or.
Yeah, yeah.
I'd like that. That'd be good. All righty. Anything else on the expo?
Nope.
Future forums and dialogues. I threw this in because I don't want to forget about what we've been discussing about potential dialogue with the council. And I want to table it just for a second though, because we might be able to fit it into perhaps an MVP 2.0 effort. And so we'll take that up and when we get to that. But for the resiliency checklist, Julia, were you able to catch up with Diana on that? See where
No,
it is?
sorry, Jane. I have not spoken with Diane and I haven't had time to dive into that separately today. So
Okay,
no updates there this meeting.
but you have met, right? To go over.
We met,
uh,
we met with Diane a couple weeks ago. And we went through all the changes that we had made during our meeting where she attended partly, and we went over it again. And I believe she did incorporate almost all of that, even in the
Okay.
moment, but I just haven't had a chance to confirm with her where it stands right now.
All right, so hopefully next meeting we'll be able to show that to the group.
Yeah,
and
yeah, I would think so, for sure.
All righty, MVP 2.0, here we are. Sarah or whoever, Julia or Molly, you've been on this call, you were on the call with Michelle Rowden. Do you mind just sort of giving an overview to the group of what we're thinking? One of you?
Yeah, I can do that. So we met with Michelle Rowden, who manages the MVP program for our region. I guess it was like a week ago. And we wanted to get her thoughts on whether or not we could potentially streamline our MVP 2.0 planning grant process because of all the work we've done with our community action project thus far. And it meets a lot of the intent and goals of the MVP 2.0 process. It looks like we are going to definitely apply for the grant, which is due this coming what is the deadline? Did she say?
I think it's the
The
4th.
fourth.
The 4th, yeah, that's right, December 4th. So we're gonna get that grant application in. We're pretty much guaranteed to get the grant. So that would embark us on this 2.0 planning process, which is heavily geared towards incorporating environmental justice communities and all those concerns into our existing climate resiliency planning processes. And while like I said, we've been doing a lot of that already over the past year and a half, there are very specific things that they want us to do under the 2.0 process, like specific trainings, specific reports that need to get written, etc. So we'll probably still will have to do all of that. But what Michelle said is just apply for the grant. And then once we receive the grant, we can sort of, work with them to determine whether or not, if we've already done something, we might not have to do it again. Or we could just do it more quickly maybe, or more easily than other communities, because we've already kind of been through it. So that's where we are with 2.0. I hope that adequately describes what you guys remember.
Yeah, I'd add that it's primarily, it seems, well, there's community liaisons that we already have some through the community action project that we've been working on, but we may have to add some additional people, which is fine and great. But it's largely consultant driven. There'll be 2 different consultants, one an equity consultant working on EJ and equity issues, and then one that really drives that process. Sarah and I had a quick conversation with Brianna at the Collins Center, whom we worked with on the department head dialogue last May. And they have done a MVP 2.0 project last year, and they'd be interested in working with us. I think we talked about this briefly at last month's meeting. So she's given us a quote. I haven't gone through it in detail. I meant to forward it to you, Molly and Julia, so I can do that after the meeting.
So Jane, I think that was a quote for the leadership dialogue.
Yeah, sorry, I'm skipping ahead. Yeah, so anyway, they could potentially work with us as that kind of consultant, but what we had specifically asked was a dialogue, if they'd be able to work with us on a dialogue with the city council. And then she suggested that this could be possibly wrapped up into MVP 2.0. And so that might be an additional thing instead of, somehow incorporated it in there. And that way that would actually provide a source of funding for that dialogue. But it's all very, very preliminary. I think her quote was around $5,000 or $6,000 for that specific dialogue with the council, should we go in that direction. But it could also possibly be covered by 2.0. Sarah, is that accurate? Thank you.
Yep.
You got it.
I got it.
You got it.
So yeah, I think that was actually interesting. So that, instead of searching around for additional funds, we might be able to use 2.0 for that purpose.
The other option is there any money we can squeeze out of our current action grant to cover that?
Sure. All right, and then in that same conversation with Michelle Robin, we talked about the applying for an action grant as well. And that's something that I think we'll have to discuss at length within the committee to, see what direction we want to go. Does anyone want to give a summary of that?
Well, just before we leave the 2.0, so is Nancy taking the lead on filling out the application for 12.4, or is there anything any of us need to do?
Good question.
I think we need to regroup with Nancy on that, actually. So maybe the 3 of us and Molly and Andy should set up a quick meeting with Nancy to just confirm that she has what she needs from us, that we, what we need to do to get that in.
Okay.
Yeah, to check on the schedule with anything timeliness, she's good about that. We just check the schedule with her, I think.
Yeah, I looked at the application. It's really straightforward. So, I mean, that she wasn't kidding when she said it should only take a half hour to fill out.
Okay, great. That makes it easy for Nancy.
Yep.
She's used to much more difficult grant applications.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's just try to, maybe even we can do it by over email. We can start a little conversation about getting that grant in on time.
Okay.
I'll start that.
Who wants to send that email?
I will.
Thank you, Julia. All right, So, that action grant, which isn't due, the application isn't due until next spring. I think their, expression of interest deadline has passed, but we had a couple ideas that we discussed with Michelle.
You want me to start on that?
Yeah,
Sure, so wastewater, as always. We've done the berm there, but sidewalls need to be built, but it has to be a long-term project, she said. And what level of protection will it give? It has to answer a lot of questions. What climate data is going to be used? Has to be, all of that information has to be ironclad. Then we talked about the water treatment facility, waterfront park at Cashman. Talked about the Braintree application that they did. And at water treatment, it would be the water pipeline from Indian Hill to Artichoke. And I guess there was one action grant in Lawrence that they got for CSOs studying the problem, but they feel like that was a critical need. She was just giving us examples of really good critical needs. We also talked about the lower Artichoke Dam needing to be safeguarded from the Merrimack when it's time for flooding. We talked about Cashman quite a bit. So Julia, I don't know if you want to talk about that further, but that seems to be an interesting
That was
one.
maybe one of the sort of two final projects that we landed on as potential MVP action grant projects. The flood walls at the wastewater treatment plant is a little bit more hard infrastructure than they're probably willing to fund for us right now. So she kind of gave us like, not necessarily the thumbs down on some of these ideas, but that they were less likely to be funded than some of the others. And so the two we landed on were the Cashman Park project, which we actually have applied for a grant for this in the past. Years ago, we applied for a CZM grant to do a feasibility study of how we could maybe do like salt marsh enhancement, kind of living shoreline stuff at Cashman Park that would serve to not just enhance the native sort of habitat along the bank, but also protect the park from flooding. And that did not get funded back then by CZM for various reasons. But since then, we've seen that a very similar project was funded for the city of Braintree that they came and gave us a presentation on. I don't know if you all remember. It was a project very similar to Cashman Park, right? Big multi-use park right on the river, tidal river, lots of flooding, lots of uses, etc. And they did a feasibility study over a couple of years to determine how they could protect the park, protect these uses, as well as improve habitat and bank stabilization and all that. And they got that funded, and it's been an amazing project. So she thinks that we could do something similar. We think we can do something similar for Cashman. She thought that that would be a good project idea, as long as, she said, we can incorporate environmental justice communities and those uses, those related uses of the park into the grant application and into the project. So like if there's a lot of boaters that use that ramp, which as Molly pointed out, there's a lot of that's one of the most heavily used boat ramps in the state, if not the, New England. Are there people who use that boat ramp for fishing, for food? And are there other needs for this park that are related to those populations? So we have to focus on that if we do that project. The second project, which is a broader project, looking at would potentially be to look at the whole shoreline from Cashman to Joppa, and incorporating public-private properties, all the whole coast, the bulkheads, the revetments, the seawalls, everything in between, and see what we should be looking at in terms of long-term planning for sea level rise for our waterfront, and how these puzzle pieces of projects that we would have to do along the way would fit together to protect our central waterfront, or really our downtown, from Cashman to Joppa from sea level rise. She thought that would also be a really good project, and she thought that there was something similar that had just been done. Was it Salem that she mentioned?
yeah.
So those are the two that we kind of landed on as the ones that would be more likely to be funded, and that would be something that would fit within our resiliency priorities and what we really would like to do.
To me,
Julia, who's
Oh,
Michelle? What's her last name? I'm just curious.
Rowden, Rowden, and she actually used to be the conservation administrator for Salisbury, and now she works for the state MVP program, and she's the Northeast region coordinator for that.
I just wanted to say that I thought the Cashman Park one is probably easier for us to pull together the application. One, because the Woods Hole Group guy said he'd help. So you'd have a
Yeah.
consultant who potentially you could help write it. But also because she was telling us that for the full waterfront one, we would need to have statements of interest from a number of not all, but a number of the landowners. So it seemed like for that one, it might take us more lead time to pull stuff together than we'd be able to do this spring.
Yeah, I agree.
Great.
But we should start a project to figure out what we need to do that maybe for the next round.
I think so too.
And I thought we need to reach out to Salem. I was thinking, Molly, read I got an
Yeah, I
email
think I
from
sent
somebody.
you
You
Neil
know
Duffy.
somebody there, right? Is that
Or-
what?
Yeah, I sent you the resiliency and sustainability manager at Salem.
Okay.
Neil Duffy.
Should
If you don't
I?
have it, I can resend it.
No, I'm sure I have it somewhere. I just couldn't remember his name. I was thinking maybe we can have him in or someone from, if he's not available, to come talk to us and just tell us what they're doing. Their name keeps popping up. Doing some really good stuff.
Yeah, they have a big staff. They have a big staff.
That helps, doesn't it?
Yep. Yep.
But, alrighty. Anything else on the MVP stuff for now? I'll just give a quick recap, and then anyone who's been involved in the meetings, feel free to chime in. So last month, we decided that we really should set up a subcommittee to look at the current resiliency actions and priorities. And so currently it's been Barb and Julia and Andy and John Eric and myself working on that spreadsheet that I had sent out that David Chatfield and I had put together, just literally taking word for word from the resiliency committee actions list, in chapter 3, I think it is. And it turned out, I keep saying there's 156 of these, but a lot of it's repetitive. A lot of them kind of reflect back on other ones. And so what the committee's been doing in the last couple of weeks is just going line by line and sort of reorganizing it for clarity, basically. So not really taking anything out. And if we have, we're keeping track of it. And so everyone will know. So the reason why we've taken out a certain line item, usually it's because it's just repetitive. And so the goal of it is to, reorganize it and make it into something that will be useful for the committee, something that's easier to track for us, to see where we are, what we've been doing. And then add to it for new priorities, because, we all talked this summer about some of the other stuff that isn't necessarily in the plan, but, we want to work on. And so it will be a process. I think we're about halfway through right now. It's been through 2 meetings. I'm hoping that it will be a worthwhile endeavor to really get a good handle on what we should be doing, what we said we were going to do, what we are doing, the reasons why we're doing it or not, and going from there.
Right, and time frame.
Yeah, we'll work on that next. Right now, we're sort of just rejigging everything, and then we'll work on time frame, responsible department. And then Barb has been working on a risk assessment tool for those projects that could use that to apply, so that we can really get into, we have to be careful on, we don't want to get into the weeds, but I think we're thinking that it would be useful to be able to explain why a certain project, the resiliency committee feels like a certain project is a higher priority than another one in terms of risk. So that's something that's a work in progress as well. And I'll just open up to anyone who's been involved if they want to say anything else on that.
This is Andy. I would just add to what James said that I think refining and simplifying some of the duplications in the list, for instance, updating it and so forth. I think that will make it a lot easier as well going forward to have more of a focused implementation of it, because there was so much covered in there that it's sort of unwieldy for others perhaps to sort of follow and see that. So I think by working through it and providing both the updates and refining how they're listed and removing some of the duplication, it'll be easier to focus on whether it's we need to do a study of this, we need to do full design of this, or we need to do construction of this. For instance, those things I think will be a little bit more clear, especially whether we're going for a grant or we're going for, discussions with the city council about a regulatory change or a capital project or whatever it might be. So I think that the resulting table will be more effective in my view, I think just because of that.
Thank you, Andy. I'm also thinking of, I'd like to, not this meeting, but in the future, talk about the work that the administration has been doing on capital improvement planning, the rating system that they've come out with. And I think that's still a bit of a work in progress, but Kim Turner and Ethan Manning have been working hard on a rating system. And so sort of how does our work fit into that in terms of, I know that there's weightings and Resiliency Friendly has a 5%
Yeah.
of that rate of that weight, but there's also master plan in there and a few health and safety, which can be resiliency oriented as well. And so resiliency and sustainability is kind of woven into some of the other categories, and then we have this 5% weight.
Right, but the number one thing, the 15% is regulation
Yes.
and mandates from the state.
Mhm.
So if
Yeah.
there's anything we can tie to that, that makes it more substantial.
And I
so
just added.
Yeah.
Yeah, Connie
I'm
probably
glad-
has more to add.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for bringing that up. I was going to make that suggestion. I agree, it's a little bit of a big thing to tackle, but it was presented last Wednesday, the 13th, at a joint meeting between the school committee and the city council just to kick off the budget process. So if anybody wants to see the slides that were presented and really capture the essence of it, they are available on the city's calendar under the November 13th meeting. So you can find all of those slides there. Again, it is it's probably more than we want to tackle right this second, but I think it would be really nice for the committee to understand that as we shape that thinking, how we make these projects fold into the city's new prioritized CIP process.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, and I meant to actually reach out to Kim this week. I haven't done it yet though, so I'm hoping maybe Kim or can come in and talk to us about sort of the thinking behind that, just bring us through it so that we can sort of bounce ideas off each other on how to best incorporate or make sure that resiliency is best represented in that process as we can get it.
Perfect. I also just need to let you know that unfortunately I need to leave. I have a meeting at 5:30 tonight, which is sort of out of cycle for me, and I have a million things, get to the farm and everything else before that, including a shower. So I need to run now, but if you need anything from me, reach out.
All right,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Connie, as always.
All right, thank you.
The only thing I have left on that is I had to leave our subcommittee meeting early yesterday, so I don't know if we have a date to meet again. But I'll reach out to.
We didn't. We thought we would check with you and nail some down after.
Okay, I'll send out an email to you guys. Figure that out. Good. Anything else on that before we move on? City project updates. I didn't know quite what to do with this yet. Mostly because we've been getting a lot of the updates from John Eric. And I think moving forward, I'll ask him if he has the time to maybe submit written updates or just give one of us, if anything that the committee needs to know so that we can relay that.
Yeah,
I
good
did
idea.
see, oh shoot, Kristen was here. I thought
Yeah.
she's not here
He
anymore.
was, yeah.
I was gonna ask her about the flap or the Plum Island study. If there's any updates on that.
Actually, I can give you a quick update on that because I just talked with John Eric. I think they've finally just were able to award the contract, so we should be able to get moving sooner now. That's that's as much of an update as I've got.
All right, thanks.
Yeah.
Does anyone have anything that they're working on that they?
Not that we're working on, but I noticed that the mayor gave an update in a way of a number of the projects in that local pulse interview that he did recently. And one that he said was on hold was the Amesbury Interconnect on sort of on permanent hold. They're not doing anything with that. So it just, and then it seemed like he was saying Indian Hill was, the Indian Hill we know is funded for this year, and he was implying that it had they'd made the decision it was prioritized over the Artichoke Dam raising. I don't know if we can get confirmation of where things stand on those from John Eric or DPS, but at least for the website updates, it would be helpful to be able to put some more recent information if there have been decisions like that.
Yeah, last time I talked to John Eric, we didn't talk about Amesbury, but he did mention the Indian Hill Reservation. There's a definite focus on that over the dam. But we should get confirmation. For now, yeah, why don't I'll work on that, Sarah. Get something
Okay.
else, at least for the website for the Amesbury Interconnect. I think that's the biggest difference, the change. And I would say put it on, we'll say indefinite hold or something like that, because I don't want it lost. I don't want to take it down because it was a nice potential project, and I don't know.
Got a new
Okay.
project that hasn't been part of our list. It might not even be anywhere in our resiliency plan, but I think
No, I thought it
we
was.
can put it in our resiliency plan, which is to do a forest stewardship plan, a forest management plan essentially for the city forest. And we could do one for all of the city forest areas that we own, but the city forest in particular, not only has it been completely neglected over the years in terms of use and just availability and awareness, but it never had a forest management plan. And so we can do this cost share agreement with DCR to help us get a forest management plan done. And it's really low cost, low effort to submit the application. So I'm planning on doing that. And a piece of what we can do, actually, we can do like an add-on, which would add on a climate resiliency component to the forest management plan, which I think right
Given
now,
all the
given the
forest fires, that seems
fires,
like a good idea.
Yeah.
exactly. So
Yeah.
that's what I was thinking. So and also for carbon capture, carbon storage, as well as forest fire prevention and all this kind of thing. It's a really great thing that we should have in place. If not for the city forest or for like everywhere. So hopefully we will get that grant and be able to start that kind of a project this winter, spring.
Julia, that is awesome. Okay, every time I drive down 95, I smell the smoke, and I just
Yeah.
remember a couple of years ago bringing this up, and not a lot of people were thinking that it would be as much of a priority as it obviously is today.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's fantastic. Thank you. Well, so we're all so quiet on Zoom.
I know, that's the problem with Zoom.
We're on Zoom and there's no John Eric. So we're really
Yeah,
quiet
that's true.
today. But does anyone have anything else on their minds?
Jane, I've been taking some notes. I'll just send them. You can use them. You guys can use them.
All right. Are you volunteering?
Not really. Just
Well,
just-
to that end, I sent Sarah and Jane a link to how to save the closed captioning
Yeah,
from a Zoom meeting,
yeah, you
which
can, I was
is
gonna
pretty
say
good.
that. I don't know if you want to do that, but it will do it for you at the beginning, but you have to really carefully go through it and make sure everything's right.
yeah. I was just
Well,
thinking that I could
I've
help.
been watching it. I've been watching it for a while now, and it's
Pretty
quite
accurate.
accurate.
Yeah, I know. It is.
All right. Well, thank you both. Nothing else, huh?
No, I guess not.
All right.
Are we meeting in December?
That's a good question. That was my next question. We're due to meet on the 18th. How do folks think about that?
Sometimes you've given us the month off.
I know, we could take the month off.
Gonna have a party with the Energy Advisory Committee?
I was thinking about that. I've threatened that a couple times and I haven't followed through. What do you think? Should we do it?
Yeah, especially
Yeah.
since we're only meeting on Zoom right now.
Fine by me.
Yeah,
As long as everybody wants to come.
In lieu of the meeting, you're thinking?
I don't know, we'd have to figure out a time.
Uh,
Probably not a 3 p.m. party. But,
On
all
a
right.
Wednesday, yeah,
On a what?
on a Wednesday, yeah.
You want a 3 p.m. party on Wednesday?
No, I'm not suggesting that. I think whoever's hosting the party gets to decide on all of the details of what that involves.
All right. I'll think about it and get back to everybody. But yeah, I think that'd be fun. We haven't done it was like 2 years, I think.
Yeah.
2 years. We did it last. And Molly, I don't even think you were able to come. So
yeah, I wasn't able to, so.
Really fun.
all right. Talk to me into it. Thank you.
Well, let us
So-
know, include us in how we can help make that happen if that's what we want to do.
I will.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And Barry, let us know what we need to do for Doug. So we can nail
Okay.
that down, because we really need to nail down our well, is there a person we can contact? So unless you want to be you. Okay, perfect.
Like Barry, I saw that you just emailed a few details. I'll get
Oh,
yeah.
okay, good.
Because we're thinking of either, Saturday or Sunday now, and so maybe an evening event with a reception beforehand to really sort of jazz it up.
Yeah,
It would
for
depend on
Sunday.
his schedule, but I'll send you those. I'll send you that so that you can forward it on. Alrighty, everyone. So we're not doing the December 18th. We're partying instead, correct?
Yes.
All right, good. I like that. All right, awesome. Well, I'm sure I'll see everyone around.
Okay,
Jane,
thank you so
All right.
much.
Everyone.
All right, take care.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.